Let me ask you a question that stopped me in my tracks recently. If someone followed you around for a week and documented everything you think about most, would they be able to identify your life's purpose? Ouch, right? When I honestly answered that question for myself, I realized how easily my thoughts get captured by the urgent rather than the important, by the temporary rather than the eternal. The truth is, even when life is going well, our minds can easily drift from our true purpose. We start measuring success by worldly standards, a promotion, a compliment, financial gain, rather than by how well we're fulfilling God's calling on our lives. We take criticism personally instead of seeing it as refinement. We chase happiness in circumstances rather than finding joy in our Creator. Colossians 3:2 offers us this powerful reminder: set your minds on things above, not on earthly things. This isn't just good advice, it's a divine instruction that points to a profound truth. Where we direct our mental focus ultimately determines the course and quality of our lives. Today, I want to share 5 biblical principles that have helped me maintain focus on life's true purpose, knowing, loving, and glorifying God, even when life's pleasures or pressures try to pull my attention elsewhere. These aren't complicated strategies, but simple, powerful practices that can transform how we think and live each day. First, let's talk about this fascinating truth. Your mind is actually contested territory. Isn't that an interesting way to think about it? In 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about taking captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. I love that image because it shows that our thoughts aren't just random, they're either leading us toward God or away from Him. Here's what I've noticed in my own life. My mind doesn't usually drift away from God through some dramatic rebellion. It's much more subtle than that. I'll be going about my day, and before I know it, I'm completely wrapped up in worries about things that won't matter in a week, let alone eternity. Can you relate to that? The cool thing is, once you start noticing these thought patterns, you can actually redirect them, and it's like catching yourself before you make a wrong turn while driving. Oops, that's not the way I want to go, and then you can course correct. The second principle comes from one of my favorite verses, Romans 12:2. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What I find fascinating about this verse is that it's not telling us to transform ourselves, it's saying allow yourself to be transformed. There's a partnership happening here. Think about it like this. Have you ever tried to change a habit by sheer willpower? How did that work out? For me, not so great. But when I focus on filling my mind with God's truth and allowing His Spirit to work in me, that's when real change happens. It's like the difference between trying to push a boulder uphill versus letting a river carry you downstream. One is exhausting, the other has a power source beyond yourself. Which would you rather experience? I found that even just 10 minutes reading scripture in the morning changes the lens through which I see everything else that day. It's not about checking a religious box, it's about giving God the first opportunity to shape my thinking before the world gets its chance. The third principle is what I call eternal perspective training. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul calls his pretty severe suffering light and momentary troubles compared to eternal glory. Now, Paul wasn't minimizing his pain, he was maximizing his perspective. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a problem that seemed absolutely huge, but a year later you could barely remember it? That's just a tiny taste of eternal perspective. I've started asking myself this question when I'm facing decisions. Will this matter in 5 years, in 50 years, in eternity? It's amazing how quickly that filters out the things that don't deserve so much of my mental energy. Here's a practical tip. When you're feeling overwhelmed by something, try zooming out mentally. Picture yourself looking at your current situation from heaven's viewpoint. Things look different from up there, don't they? The fourth principle is something Jesus modeled perfectly: creating space for connection with God. In Mark's Gospel, we see Jesus regularly slipping away from the crowds to pray, even when people were literally lining up for His help. If Jesus, who was actually God in human form, needed quiet time with the Father, how much more do we need it? Yet this is usually the first thing we sacrifice when life gets busy. I've discovered that I don't need hours of silent meditation to refocus my mind, though that would be nice. Even small connection points throughout my day make a huge difference. A prayer while waiting in line, a moment of gratitude while stuck in traffic, a scripture verse I've memorized that I can recall during a stressful meeting. These little moments are like spiritual recalibrations that keep me from drifting too far off course. They remind me that God is present in every part of my day, not just during official spiritual activities. And finally, the fifth principle is something we often overlook. We need other people to help us stay focused. Hebrews 10 talks about not giving up meeting together and encouraging one another. There's a reason for that. Have you noticed how much easier it is to maintain any good habit when you have accountability? Whether it's exercising, eating healthy, or focusing on God's purposes, we do better together than alone. So here's what all this looks like in real life. When I'm living with my mind focused on God's purposes, I still experience difficulties, but they don't define me. I still enjoy life's pleasures, but I don't depend on them. I care about people's opinions, but I'm not controlled by them. There's a freedom that comes with this kind of focus. And the beautiful thing is, you can start right where you are. You don't need to wait until you have everything figured out or until life calms down. Spoiler alert, it probably won't. Each moment gives you a fresh opportunity to redirect your focus to what truly matters. When you find your thoughts drifting, and we all do, don't beat yourself up about it. Just gently bring your focus back to God, like redirecting a wandering child. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Remember, Jesus said he came so we could have life to the full. Not stressed, distracted, or purposeless, but abundant and meaningful. That kind of life begins in our minds as we learn to focus on our true purpose, knowing, loving, and glorifying the God who created us. I'd love to hear from you. Which of these principles resonates most with your current situation? Drop a comment below and let's encourage each other in this journey of keeping our minds focused on what truly matters. If this video helped you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more practical biblical guidance on living with purpose. Until next time, remember, what you focus on determines the direction of your life. Choose wisely,